Welcome to part 2 in a series of 3 educational and instructional programs brought to you by the Tennessee Walking Horse Breeders and Exhibitors Association. Founded in 1935 in Lewisburg, Tennessee, the TWHBEA is the official breed registry of the Tennessee Walking Horse. TWHBEA is dedicated to preserving, promoting, and protecting this wonderful breed of horse, best known for its smooth, unique gait, gentle temperament, and extreme versatility. This program, Basic Techniques for Training the Tennessee Walking Horse, will take you step by step from the basics of gait recognition to improving and enhancing your horse's gaits through bitting, riding, collection, shoeing, and other training methods. Now that you have saddled and ridden your Tennessee Walker for the first time using the methods demonstrated in Part 1 of this program, Basic Techniques for Starting the Tennessee Walking Horse, you are now ready to start working your young horse under saddle. For the most part, the Tennessee Walking Horse is a smooth-gaited, gentle-natured animal that can adapt to a number of uses. However, it is important to realize that no two horses are the same. Every horse has its own unique qualities. It's very important to evaluate your horse and determine what its abilities and limitations are before you begin serious training. Some horses are bred with a show ring in mind, while others are better suited for the trail. Some have the ability and versatility to excel in both areas. But wherever your interests lie, you can avoid a great deal of frustration during the training process if you begin with a horse that's suited to your interests. In the show ring, Tennessee walking horses perform as many as 3 distinct gaits: the flat walk, the running walk, and the canter. According to the National Horse Show Commission rulebook, the flat walk should be bold and four-cornered. The horse should nod the head with every stride and bring each forefoot to the ground a mere second before the diagonally opposite hindfoot touches the ground. The forelegs should move straight, breaking at the knees and reaching forward in an elevated arc. The rear leg should follow through close to the ground, comfortable in overstriding the front tracks. The running walk should be the same general motion as the flat walk, but with additional speed. The horse should exhibit a smooth, gliding, overstepping four-cornered gait with greater stride and accelerated head motion. The running walk should be a free and easy gait. The canter should be smooth and straight on both leads, not walking behind, but cantering on both ends with a rolling, rocking chair motion, comfortably in hand. Exaggerated pumping of the horse at the canter is not considered good form. Think of the gaits of the Tennessee walking horse in terms of a scale. The left side of the scale represents the lateral gaits. The most lateral of all gaits is the pace. In the opposite direction, going to the right of center, the gaits become more diagonal. The most diagonal gait is the trot. Therefore, you should view the pace and the trot as opposite ends of the spectrum, with the flat walk and running walk falling slightly toward the diagonal side of the center. There are varying degrees leading to the lateral pace, such as a swing walk or a stepping pace. There are also varying degrees leading to the diagonal trot, such as soft trotting or fox trotting. While many walking horses can perform both a trot and a pace, most tend to prefer one over the other. Often this preference or tendency will reveal itself once you begin working your horse under saddle. Even though a horse might trot often while turned out in a paddock, it might tend to be pacey when ridden. It's important to recognize your horse's tendencies when you first begin working it under saddle. The pace is a 2-beat lateral gait. A pacey horse, such as this 2-year-old colt, moves the front and rear legs on each side of its body in unison. The 2 left legs move forward and strike the ground together, and the 2 right legs move forward and strike the ground together. This results in lateral leg movement. In a true pace, the horse's body, neck, and head will remain quite rigid. The pace is a very rough, bouncy gait to ride. From a training standpoint, the major benefit of the pace is that it helps to lengthen a horse's stride. Pacey horses must be taught to square up and become more diagonal in order to achieve a true flat walk or running walk. The trot is a 2-beat diagonal gait. A trotty horse, such as this 2-year-old filly, has a footfall that is the opposite of a pacey horse. Instead of lateral leg movement, the legs move in diagonal pairs. The left foreleg will strike the ground at the same time as the right hind leg. The left hind leg will meet the ground at the same time as the right front. This filly, though not performing a true trot, is definitely on the trotty or diagonal side of the gait scale. She is performing what some might call a soft trot. She will have to get more lateral in order to achieve a true flat walk or running walk. For this segment, our first training subjects will be two light-shod 2-year-olds. At the time this program was filmed, each had been ridden approximately 60 days by the same amateur. 1 week prior to the shooting of this footage, the two horses were placed under the direction of professional trainer Russell Keyser. We will examine both individuals, assess their strengths and weaknesses, and demonstrate simple, basic ways to improve their gaits. Our first subject is a light-shod 2-year-old gelding. He is wearing a shoe slightly lighter than a standard light-shod shoe on the front. For showing purposes, standard light-shod shoes are no wider than 3/4 of an inch and no thicker than 3/8 of an inch, with the exception of the caulk, which can be no thicker than 3/4 of an inch. On the rear, he is wearing simple keg shoes with no caulks. Many trainers will opt for hind shoes with no caulks because they can sometimes interfere with the freedom of movement in a horse's hind legs. The bit is a simple O-ring jointed copper snaffle. Snaffles are more gentle than curb bits and are the recommended bit for starting any young horse. It's important to understand there is no such thing as a magic bit. All horses, no matter what breed, can become completely bridle-wise and fully trained using nothing more than a snaffle bit. Curb bits can be introduced later, once a horse is fully responsive to the snaffle. Curb bits can give the rider more control and aid in collection and head setting. You will notice the colt is not wearing a cavesson, the noseband used in conjunction with many bridles. Some trainers like to let their young horses learn to wear the bridle without a cavesson. Others prefer to use cavessons because they can give the rider a little more control in a horse's mouth. Often, working a horse with or without a cavesson simply depends on the individual horse, or it boils down to a personal preference on the part of the trainer. In the show ring, horses wear cavessons in English classes, but not in Western classes. The rope around the horse's chest area is a handmade running martingale. At first, it will not be in use. Later, we'll show you how and why it can be used as a simple training aid. Conformationally, this colt has a nice long neck that emerges well from his shoulders. He has a well-defined head with intelligent eyes and well-placed ears. He has a good sloping shoulder and a short back. As we begin working on the rail, remember that this 2-year-old has been ridden approximately 60 days by an amateur. He is already demonstrating some good characteristics. Most notably, the foundation for a good flat walk has already been laid. For 2 months, his rider has done nothing more than ride him on a light rein, trying to get him consistent and comfortable. It's very important to get your horse moving forward in a confident, relaxed manner before you attempt to modify its gaits. You have to get consistent before you can change anything. It is also important that the horse be as well broken bridle-wise as possible before you begin to fine-tune its gaits. This colt is already demonstrating the head nod, rhythm, and looseness one should look for in a good pleasure Tennessee walking horse. He's very close to performing a nice 4-beat flat walk. He's breaking and reaching with his front legs and overstriding with his back legs. Overstriding is when the track left by a front foot is surpassed by the track made by the hind foot on the same side. The more overstride, the better. It has taken a great deal of saddle time to get this young gelding to this point. It requires patience and persistence to teach a young horse how to maintain this type of gait. Although very close to a 4-beat flat walk, notice how he still demonstrates a hint of lateral movement in his gait. This means that he's not as square or diagonal as he could be. For a young horse, this is okay. In fact, many trainers prefer their young horses to maintain some lateral movement because it keeps their back ends looser and striding longer. At this point, we are not at all concerned with headset. We just want the colt to get as comfortable and consistent in this gait as possible. Now we will ask the colt to step up in pace. The reason for this is simply to stretch out the back end in an effort to increase the overstride. The rider will do this by slightly leaning forward in the saddle and using a little leg pressure. When doing this, you probably want to increase the amount of contact you have with the horse's mouth. Notice the lateral leg movement of the pace. It's important to limit the time you spend doing this. If a horse tends to be on the pacey side anyway, you can make it more difficult to return to a good square flat walk if you pace the horse too much. The amount of time you spend doing this all depends on the type of horse you have. When asking your horse to pace, it's always a good idea to reestablish the flat walk before ending the day's lesson. Here, the colt is slowed down and drops back into a more 4-beat diagonal flat walk, as opposed to the 2-beat lateral pace. You can see the head motion and the 1, 2, 3, 4 beat return. Although it can be good to occasionally ask your horse to step up in pace to lengthen out its stride, there's no training substitute for time spent in the saddle drilling your horse to achieve this consistent 4-beat gait. Next, we will try our homemade running martingale. This is a simple training aid that runs from the girth of the saddle and has 2 rings that are positioned high above the shoulders for the reins to slip through. It also has a strap that goes across the withers, which helps hold it in position. The martingale serves several useful purposes. It helps to keep your hands consistent and holds the reins in a lower position. It gives you more leverage to pull the horse's nose in so it can become more flexed at the pole. This will keep your horse more collected and discourage him from tossing his head and getting strung out in the bridle. Here, our rider increases the amount of contact she has with the horse's mouth. It's important to keep your hands steady and low, making any increases slow and gradual. Once you've increased the tension on the reins, keep your hands steady so the horse can become accustomed to the increase in pressure on its mouth. At first, a horse may try to resist the pressure, toss its head and nudge the bit forward. Keep the pressure even, and eventually the horse should begin to relax behind the bit, meaning it will stay off the bit and stop pulling against you. It will show more flex at the pole and become more consistent overall in the bridle. Its head shake will become more pronounced and rhythmic. As you do more of this type of training with the martingale, your horse should become very responsive to it. Once this occurs consistently, you can graduate from a snaffle bit to a mild curb bit, such as the tom thumb. The curb bit will help to replace the martingale and enable you to collect your horse through your hands. It's very important, however, that your horse be responsive to the snaffle and the martingale before you advance to a curb bit. Now we'll work the colt in a figure 8. This is a multi-purpose exercise that teaches a horse to flex both sides of its body. It's also a good way to square up a pacey horse because it's difficult for a horse to maintain lateral movement while working in a circle. In addition, figure 8 work will teach a horse to become more responsive in the corners of its mouth. The horse will learn to respond to bit pressure on each side of its mouth, making it easier to collect when you do increase the amount of hold on the reins. It's important to teach your horse to back and to practice this exercise often. Backing is another way to teach a horse to respond to bit pressure. It also teaches a horse to shift its weight to its hindquarters, which aids in collection. Another benefit of backing is that it helps strengthen a horse's back. You can teach your horse to back through the pressure release method. With your hands low, pull back on the reins with steady pressure. It's important to not jerk the reins. Maintain even pressure until the horse drops its head and takes a step backward. Each time you get a proper response, a step backward, immediately reward the horse by releasing the pressure on the reins. Repeat this process until the horse understands what it is you're asking it to do. It's also important to note that all pleasure horses are required to back in the show ring. Our next training subject is a 2-year-old filly. Like the gelding we just finished looking at, this filly has been ridden about 60 days by an amateur. She's wearing the same snaffle bit as the gelding and is shod identically, slightly less than light shod shoes on the front and keg shoes behind. The amount of work she's undergone and the equipment we are using is virtually the same as it was for the gelding. In the opinion of our consulting trainer, Russ Keyser, this filly appears to have a little more overall ability than the gelding. She has more drive off her back end. She's more snappy with her front legs and has a slightly deeper head nod. Overall, he considers her to be less pacey than the gelding and closer to the center of our gait scale, more walky, if you will. From a conformation standpoint, this filly is good everywhere with the exception of her neck. Her neck is rather short, and because of this, she doesn't carry her head as high as the gelding. The lower head carriage makes her a good prospect to show in Western classes. Her best qualities are a nice sloping shoulder and well-built, strong hindquarters. When our rider asks this filly to step up in pace, notice how she doesn't get as lateral as the gelding did. Her pace is more subtle and has a little more rhythm to it. This would be considered more of a stepping pace. It can be described as somewhere between a pace and a running walk. Although she does show some lateral movement, she's closer to the center of our gait scale than the gelding. Because this filly has a naturally long striding back end, she won't require as much pacing as the gelding. Her back end won't require constant attention because her overstride is very good by nature. Some horses are just born with the ability to stride longer than others. This can be caused by good breeding or simply luck. Often, it's a combination of the two. Now, with trainer Russ Keyser in the saddle, we'll work the same 2-year-old filly in a set of draw reins. Draw reins are a simple training aid that will help teach a horse to flex at the pole and achieve a more vertical head set. Simply attach the ends of the reins to the saddle on each side of the horse. Run the opened end of each rein through the O-rings of the snaffle bit. The draw action of the reins will give you more leverage with your hands, allowing you to pull your horse's nose in. The result will be a more collected horse. With your hands steady and low, urge your horse forward and maintain even pressure on the reins. Watch as this filly responds to the increase in pressure caused by the draw reins. For a moment, she tries to resist the pressure before she gives to it again. Her neck and poll are rounding out, and her head set becomes more vertical. Overall, she appears more collected. Her head knot is deeper, and her gait is bolder and more four-cornered. She's even snappier with her front end. This filly is really working well in these draw reins. The improvement in her head set and her gait is dramatic. Because of her short neck, the draw reins work particularly well on this filly. It's probably a good idea to keep these draw rein workouts brief. The jaw and neck muscles can get tired when the draw rein pressure is constant for too long. If you overdo these workouts, you can create a hard-mouthed horse. As your horse becomes consistent and responsive in the draw reins, you should notice an improvement when you ask your horse to give to the bit without the draw reins. You can then gradually work into a mild curb bit. This will give you added leverage, and you should begin to be able to collect your horse with your hands through the pressure release method. A horse's natural tendency is to move into pressure, to resist pressure by pressing back instead of moving away. The pressure release method teaches a horse to move away from pressure whenever it is applied. Anytime a person applies pressure to a horse, whether it be rein pressure, leg pressure, or hand pressure from the ground, the pressure must be removed the instant the horse moves away from it. The quick removal of the pressure is a horse's reward for giving the correct response. Throughout this video, we've referred often to the term collection. When we talk about a horse being collected, we're talking about a horse's overall physical appearance during forward motion. A collected horse will be balanced and relaxed, with its back legs low, driving forward, and staying underneath its body. The front end will be light and agile. A collected horse will be flexed at the poll, soft in its mouth, and its head set will be close to vertical. The gait will be bold, four-cornered, and consistent. Collection has been defined as impulsion against restraint. In layman's terms, it's the act of driving a horse up in the bridle, pushing a horse forward, while at the same time holding it back. Through collection and weight, you can teach a pacey, laterally gaited horse to square up and become more diagonal. To demonstrate this, we'll show you a 2-year-old plantation-shod filly. She's wearing a mild curb bit called a wonder bit. This bit has a smooth jointed mouthpiece that slides along a ring on the shank. By using a loose curb chain with this particular bit, you can maintain greater contact with your horse's mouth. This will enable you to better collect your horse through your hands. The cavesson is snug, but not tight. A cavesson can increase rider control and prevent a horse from opening its mouth so wide that its tongue flops over the bit. It's important to place the cavesson about a finger's width distance below the cheekbones and never draw it so tight that it completely restricts a horse's ability to move its mouth. A cavesson that's too low and too tight can pinch and interfere with a horse's ability to breathe. At first, this filly demonstrates a stepping pace. She's not as square or diagonal as she needs to be for a true 4-beat flat walk or running walk. However, she's not hard pacing either. She shows some signs of head shake and rhythm. The stepping pace is somewhere between a pace and a 4-beat gait. Notice how the rider is bouncing up and down in the saddle, a result of pacey lateral leg movement. Anytime you have a horse that tends to be on the pacey side, the basic rule of thumb is to add more weight to the front and keep the horse shod lightly in the back. The opposite is usually true for a square or diagonally gaited horse, light on the front and heavier on the rear. Because this filly is rather swingy or pacey, she's wearing plantation shoes on the front. For showing purposes, plantation shoes must not exceed 1/2 inch in thickness or 1 1/2 inches in width. The caulk must not exceed a 1-inch turnback, and the shoe must not extend more than 1/4 inch beyond the hoof at the toe. To help her square up, she's being ridden barefooted behind. This is a common practice with pacey horses, but you have to be careful the hind feet don't wear down to the point of becoming tender. If riding a barefooted horse, it's important to pay attention to the surface you're riding on. Hard surfaces might wear the feet down too much. If too much wear occurs, have your farrier put a set of light hind shoes on your horse. Now, trainer John Puckett will show you how you can collect a horse through your hands, seat, and legs and move closer toward a 4-beat gait. By increasing the amount of contact with the mouth, he drives the filly forward into the bridle. Notice how she begins to plant and drive off her back end better. Her gait is getting more diagonal, her head shake a little more pronounced, and her front end snappier. Overall, she's less lateral in her movement and is closer to the 4-beat running walk we're seeking. You can see that John is not bouncing in the saddle as much as our previous rider. He's simply using his seat and legs to push the filly forward, the impulsion, while simultaneously restraining the filly by maintaining even, constant pressure on the reins. Through collection and weight, a pacey horse can become more diagonal in its gait. Don't expect this to happen overnight, but with patience and repetition, you can transform your swingy horse into a smooth-gaited performer. This is an example of a finished light-shod Tennessee walking horse. Notice how bold, square, and four-cornered he is at the flat walk. This horse has a deep cadenced head nod, and his overall timing's very good. As the old saying goes, if he's not shaking his head, he's not walking. He shows good knee and shoulder motion, and his back end drives forward with a nice overstride. As you can see, he's being ridden in Western tack on a light rein. A light rein is important in the pleasure division, particularly in Western competition. This horse is wearing competition light-shod shoes on the front. The competition light-shod shoe is the maximum shoe allowed in the light-shod division. It's 3/8 of an inch thick and 3/4 of an inch wide. The only difference in the competition version is that it has a slightly longer turnback than the standard light-shod shoe. The hind shoes used on this horse are medium-sized plates with trailers and no caulks. Some trainers prefer shoes without caulks because the flat surface is thought to provide more freedom of movement. Others like the added traction caulks provide. The trailers, which increase the length of the shoes, are thought to give a horse maximum support in the hind legs. The bit is a low-port Western bit. According to the trainer, the primary reason for using it simply is because this horse seems to like it. He also says this horse will perform equally as well in just about any bit. Remember, there is no magic bit. If a horse has been taught to respond to bit pressure using the pressure release method, then the bit becomes secondary. Most bits should be adjusted to create about one wrinkle in the corner of the mouth. A bit that's too high in the mouth can cause a horse to fuss and fight with a bit. A bit that's too low can make a horse more difficult to control. The tightness of the curb depends a great deal on the horse and its level of training. This particular horse prefers a curb that's somewhat loose. A curb that's too tight will often make a horse fussy, while a curb that's too loose can make a horse more difficult to control. It's probably a good idea to begin with a moderate curb chain, then adjust it as needed. Keep in mind, however, that the tighter the curb, the easier it is to damage a horse's mouth with the bit, particularly for a rider who is on the heavy-handed side. Horses that have been taught to respond to bit pressure through the pressure release method will usually require a minimal amount of curb. This horse is wearing Western tack, therefore a caveson's not being used. As we continue to watch this horse, again, notice how rhythmic and cadenced he is. Every step is consistently square and four-cornered. This horse would be described as having lots of walk. This is the gait that has made the Tennessee walking horse famous. Not only is it easy on the horse, allowing it to cover great distances with minimal effort, it's also very easy on the rider. Those who ride smooth-gaited Tennessee walkers can spend hours in the saddle with little or no discomfort. The last gait of the Tennessee walking horse is the canter. The canter is a rhythmical three-beat gait. It's executed with either a right or left lead. The front leg reaching out the farthest is the lead leg. The lead hind leg should coordinate with the lead front leg. For instance, a horse on the left lead should lead with the left front and the left hind. A horse on the right lead should lead with the right front and the right hind. When working in a circle, a horse should always lead with the inside pair of legs. The correct lead enables a horse to be balanced and comfortable at the canter. It's important to realize that the canter is a gait that's natural to all breeds of horses, so teaching it should not be met with apprehension. As with teaching any new exercise, repetition and patience are the keys to success. There's several technical training exercises that are beneficial to know when teaching the canter. They include bending to the inside, the shoulder in, and the haunches in. These exercises help a horse to maintain the proper body position when cantering. Proper body position at the canter means that a horse's body should follow the arc of the circle in which it's cantering. Rather than get technical, we're only going to cover the basics of teaching the canter in this program. Begin in a small circle or round pen. Give the horse a little slack in the reins to allow him to move freely forward. Next, combine a verbal cue with the following leg and seat aids. First, apply even pressure with your inside leg at the girth and your outside leg just behind the girth. These leg aids will also help to urge the horse forward. Use the verbal cue of canter each time you apply the leg aids. Keep pushing the horse forward until it breaks and canters. You must take away your leg pressure the instant the horse begins to canter. You should be able to look over the inside shoulder of the horse to see if the horse is leading with the correct front leg. At first, it's important to get the horse to willingly move forward at the canter without running. A round pen can help in slowing down a horse that wants to run. With repetition, your horse should begin to pick up each lead willingly and canter at a relaxed pace. Once that's been accomplished, you can begin to widen the circle. Eventually, you should be able to take more hold of the reins and achieve more collection and headset at the canter. The result should be a slower, rocking chair canter. It's important to never pump a horse's mouth when cantering. Your hand should remain low and quiet. A horse that's been well schooled in the canter will pick up its leads easily and canter willingly in a circle or a straight line. Proper shoeing and hoof care are not only vital to the overall health and well-being of a horse, they're important to the training process as well. As the old adage goes, no foot, no horse. Most horses, no matter what the breed, can be trimmed and shod by a professional farrier every 4 to 6 weeks without harm to the horse. Foal's hooves should be inspected and trimmed once a month until they go into training and are shod. As we mentioned earlier in the basic gait training segment of this program, there are some generally accepted principles for shoeing Tennessee walking horses. Once again, it's important to remember that all horses are different and react differently to certain stimuli. There are, however, a few rules of thumb when it comes to improving the gait of walking horses through shoeing. To help square up pacey, laterally gaited horses, add heavier shoes to the front and keep the rear shoes as light as possible. For trotty, diagonally gaited horses, the opposite usually works best. Keep the front shoes light and the hind shoes heavy. In this segment, we will feature professional farrier Mark Walling, who will give us a demonstration on the basics of shoeing the Pleasure Tennessee walking horse. For all of your shoeing and hoof care needs, it's very important to always consult a professional farrier or a veterinarian.
Hello, I'm Mark Walling. I've been shoeing Tennessee walking horses for almost 30 years. I'd like to show you some of the shoes available today to use on your walking horse. First, let's start with a keg shoe. This shoe is machine-made and available across the country. It's approximately 3/8 of an inch thick, 3/4 of an inch wide. This shoe would be a good one to use if you're trail riding your horse. We manufacture a full line of shoes. The first being a shoe that's 3/8 of an inch thick, 3/4 of an inch wide. This shoe is what will be used in the light shod division of the showing of horses. Beyond that, we'll get up into a different type of a 3/8 by 3/4 shoe that is strictly a show shoe. We've extended the heel to add a little lift to the horse and a little additional weight. This is for the light shod show horse. If you're trail riding a horse and he is a little bit pacey on you, we make a shoe that's 3/8 of an inch thick, 1 inch wide. It gives you just a little bit of additional weight. It also gives you a wide support for the horse's foot. You can still turn your horse out and let him exercise in a pen if wanted to. We'd normally put this on with a number 6 nail in the toes and possibly go to a number 7 nail in the heels to give us a little additional strength. If your horse is pacing even harder than that, move up again. Here's a 1/2 inch by 1 inch wide shoe. This is going to almost double the weight from our original light shod shoe. This shoe, again, will be put it on with number 6 nails in the toes. Go to a number 7 in your heel. This is going to be the point that holds the shoe best to his foot. Give yourself a little additional strength. If you're into the showing in the heavy shod division of the walking horses, we manufacture a 1/2 inch wide, 1.5 inch shoe. This is the heaviest thing for the show division. This shoe would not be good to turn your horse out in a paddock with. Because of the size of it, he'll most likely knock it off. When you get to our hind shoes, we've talked about gait a little bit. This is a 1/4 inch thick, 3/4 inch wide shoe. This would be for a horse that's very pacey. Gives you the lightest shoe available for his hind feet. Next, we'd move up to a 3/8 by 3/4 shoe. If your horse is locked into his gait, doing a nice stride, this is probably the shoe that would work best for you. Next thing, if your horse has gotten too square, too trotty with you, add some weight to his hind foot. This is a 3/8 by 1 inch wide shoe. I would apply it with number 6 nails. This shoe will help you break up that trot, get him a little bit on the swingy, gaited side. If it isn't quite heavy enough, you have an additional problem. The heaviest shoe that we manufacture is a 1/2 inch wide, 1 inch wide shoe. There again, I'd put it on with number 6 nails to the toe, possibly a 7 in the heel. This is a heavy shoe for an extremely trotty animal. I hope that gives you some idea of what's available today, and you can buy these through the National Mail Order Catalog.
Now, Mark will trim and shoe a Pleasure Tennessee walking horse. For the purpose of this program, we will cover only the basics. Again, we don't recommend that you attempt any trimming and shoeing yourself. We're only demonstrating the shoeing process for the purpose of increasing awareness and education. Horses have a number of sensitive areas in their hooves, so it's vitally important to leave the trimming and shoeing to a professional. For this demonstration, we will outfit a horse with a set of keg shoes. Keg shoes come in several sizes and are an ideal choice for general pleasure and trail riding. They're light, easy to keep on a horse's hoof, and provide plenty of hoof protection. The farrier begins here with the left front hoof. The first thing he does is use a hoof knife to carefully pare away the dead sole from the hoof and to remove ragged parts from the frog. This process also removes any foreign matter that's collected on the bottom of the foot. Once this has been done, he uses a set of hoof nippers to trim away surplus growth around the wall of the hoof. For humans, this is equivalent of trimming fingernails. The next step is to use a hoof rasp to file a level bearing surface around the bottom of the hoof. He returns to the hoof knife to pare away more of the sole and frog. The farrier carefully examines the hoof to ensure it's trimmed completely and appears to be smooth and level. A final touch with the rasp and the farrier is ready to check the angle of the hoof and the length of the toe with a hoof gauge. This device will ensure the exact hoof angle and toe length so that a corresponding pair of feet can be trimmed the same length and angle. Differences in hoof angle and toe length do influence a horse's way of going, thereby affecting gait. It's important to determine at what angle and length your horse performs best. Following a final inspection, the hoof's ready for the shoe. The keg shoe is placed on the hoof to check for fit. If the shoe is too narrow or too wide, it has to be adjusted to fit the exact shape of the hoof. The farrier can adjust the shape of the shoe on an anvil. With his hammer, he uses the anvil to form the shoe into the desired shape. The shoe is then placed on the hoof again to make sure it was adjusted properly. A few more minor adjustments on the anvil and the shoe's ready to try out on the hoof again. Once the farrier determines the shoe is the proper shape, it's ready to be nailed on. The end of a properly driven nail will emerge on the outside of the hoof wall, avoiding the quick or sensitive area of the hoof. The quick is the area inside the white line of the hoof. The white line is a buffer between the movements of the sole and the wall. It's the guideline for hoof shaping and nail placement. A nail that gets too close to the quick will cause lameness in the horse and abscesses in the hoof. As each nail emerges at the proper height on the outside of the hoof wall, the farrier uses his hammer to wring off the ends of the nails. What remains of each nail is called a clinch. Next, a clinching block is used to turn the clinches downward. The farrier then places the hoof on a hoof stand and uses a pair of nail cutters to bite off the tips of the clinches to an even length. A finishing rasp is then used to remove the burr under each clinch. Next, a clincher is used to pull down and flatten out the clinches against the outside of the hoof wall. This locks each nail in place and helps to secure the shoes tightly. For the final step, the finishing rasp is used once again to smooth the clinches and finish the hoof. Hoof care is very important to the health of any horse. Here, the farrier applies a thrush medication to the frog and heels of this horse's hooves. Thrush is a common hoof ailment that's often compared to athlete's foot in humans. It's a destruction of the frog by bacteria. The usual indications are a black, foul-smelling frog. Thrush is primarily caused by damp, dirty conditions coupled with long, untrimmed hooves. The medication being applied here is an antiseptic drying agent. Thrush is just one of many common hoof problems horses can encounter. Others include white line disease, sole bruises, corns, abscesses, sand cracks, navicular disease, and laminitis. Always consult a farrier or veterinarian at the first sign of any hoof problem. As we begin work on the hind feet, the farrier removes the shoe so the hoof can be trimmed or reset. He uses a clinch cutter to raise the clinches. By placing the blade under each clinch and striking them with a driving hammer, the clinches pop up and the shoe can easily be removed with the pull-offs. The trimming and shoeing process is the same for the hind feet as it is for the front feet. Once all 4 feet have been shod, the farrier applies a hoof dressing to each hoof. Hoof dressings keep the feet pliable by maintaining much-needed moisture, eliminating dry, cracked, brittle hooves. There are a number of good hoof dressing products on the market. Driving a horse can be beneficial to the training process as well as another way to compete with your horse in the show ring. There are driving classes within the light shod and plantation divisions for 2-wheel and 4-wheel vehicles, as well as for carriages. For the versatility enthusiast, there's obstacle driving. The performance show horse has the fine harness division. Driving also has its training benefits. The best way to begin the process of driving is to first teach your horse to ground drive or long line. From a safety standpoint, it's very important that you have proper fitting tack that's in good condition. Here, a 2-year-old stallion is outfitted with a driving bridle that includes a flat-cheek, double-twisted wire driving bit. Driving bridles are equipped with side blinkers, which keep a horse from spooking at the sight of the cart and driver. When harnessing a horse, it's important to have at least one person head the horse to maintain control. First, the breast collar is placed on your horse, making sure it's positioned just above the shoulders. The surcingle is then placed securely around the girth. Next, the crupper is secured under the tail. This must be done gently because horses are very sensitive about the undersides of their tails, particularly young horses. When all the adjustments have been made and the harness has been fitted properly, you are ready to do some ground driving. At first, one person should remain at the head to lead the horse. It's important for the person who is long lining to stand slightly off to the side to avoid being kicked. Notice how this colt starts out a little fussy. Remain patient and calm, and eventually your horse will begin to understand what you are asking it to do. When introducing your horse to long lines, it's best to do so in a round pen or enclosed area. If the horse is startled or the person driving is placed in a dangerous position, the horse can be turned loose and easily caught. Soon the header is removed. The colt seems to be relaxing and is turning and stopping well. It's probably a good idea to long line a horse over several workouts before actually hooking up the driving cart. It's important that the horse and driver are comfortable and confident before the cart is introduced. When hooking a cart or buggy for the first time, at least 3 people are needed, one to control the head and one to stand on each side of the horse while hooking the cart. Horses are claustrophobic, so it's vital that the shafts of the cart are introduced gently to the sides of the horse. Any sudden banging on the hindquarters or sides can cause a horse to bolt forward. Once the shafts are secure and the cart has been hooked, we are ready to begin driving. Again, for safety reasons, have one person remain at the head to lead the horse off. Because of the added weight of the cart, the feeling of the shafts against its sides, and the unusual noise coming from behind, a horse can easily be startled when it first moves forward with a cart. Here the driver remains on the ground to make sure the horse is not going to rear over. Once the horse is moving forward nicely, the driver sits down in the cart seat. The driver must be careful to avoid tripping over the lines or getting in the way of the cart. Once the horse begins to move forward with confidence, the header is removed. Make the first workouts brief and try to keep the horse relaxed. Horses learn much better when they are fresh and not fatigued. Do some figure 8s, circles, and serpentines until the horse becomes easy to direct and is comfortable pulling the cart. For pacey, laterally gaited horses, carts can be used with some sort of weight on the back. Dragging added weight helps to break up lateral leg movement. When pulling a drag, work the horse at a slow, flat walk and do lots of dog walking. A dog walk is a very slow walk that's about equal to the speed at which a horse is led. Keeping the horse slow when pulling weight can help a pacey horse to square up. For horses that are on the square or trotty side and you want to get more swing and stride, do not use additional weight behind the cart. Instead, keep the horse pushed up into a faster gait, and often some paciness will emerge. When unhooking, always utilize a header and have 2 people man each side of the cart. If at all possible, have someone who is experienced with harnessing and driving a horse help with the first few driving lessons. It can be dangerous for an inexperienced horse and driver, so safety should be of primary concern. To this point, we have focused on basic training techniques for the flat-shod Tennessee walking horse. These techniques can be applied to all pleasure walking horses, whether training for the show ring or for the trail. Another significant division within the Tennessee walking horse breed is the performance show horse. Performance show horses are trained to perform in the show ring with padded shoes and action devices. Action devices are anklets that are worn around a horse's pasterns. Their weight, for showing purposes, must not exceed 6 ounces. The padded shoes and action devices serve to enhance and elevate the gaits of a horse. Although they exhibit more action in their gaits than pleasure horses do, performance show horses should still demonstrate proper form in the flat walk, running walk, and canter. Although walking horses are extremely versatile, not every horse is suited for every division. In this segment, we will demonstrate some of the levels of progression seen in the training of performance show horses. If you plan to try your horse in the performance division, unless you have some background in padded horses, it's recommended that you seek out a qualified professional trainer who is experienced with this style of horse. Performance show horses have specialized needs and require a different kind of care than pleasure horses. The goal of this program is to simply increase education and awareness about the qualities of the performance Tennessee walking horse.
Just a 2-year-old entry, and look at here. Yes, sir, yes, sir. Our congratulations, a job well done.
Our first example of a young performance horse is a 2-year-old stallion that's been in training for about 6 weeks. This colt is wearing a simple half-cheek snaffle bit with a tie-down. The tie-down used here is a basic cotton leg bandage that's tied to the cavesson and runs between the front legs of the horse and attaches to the girth. Its purpose is to help balance and stabilize the colt's head. This helps the rider maintain control of the horse without having to constantly pull on the mouth. Performance prospects begin their training barefooted. As they progress, padded shoes and action devices are gradually introduced to their front feet. As you can see, this colt has a tremendous amount of looseness and pace in his way of going. His back legs stride easily underneath his body. In fact, his back feet are even surpassing the diagonally opposing front feet with each stride. His front legs break and reach from the shoulder. Everything about this colt is fluid and moving forward. This enables him to cover a great amount of ground with each stride. Soon, the trainer will advance to a curb bit and begin to work on headset. The same as with a flat shod horse, through weight and collection, over time, this colt should begin to move toward a more diagonal 4-beat gait. Our next young performance horse is a 2-year-old filly. She is in a more advanced stage than the previous colt. She has graduated from the snaffle and is now in a curb bit, in this case a basic 6-cent shank with a rubber mouthpiece. The rubber mouthpiece works well on this filly because she is described by her trainer, Tim Gray, as having a very soft mouth. Conformationally, this filly has a refined muzzle with a good shallow mouth, large, bold eyes, and well-set ears. Overall, her head is extremely attractive. Her neck emerges nicely from her shoulders into a trim, refined throat latch. Her shoulders are well sloped, and her front legs are positioned on the front of her body. Her back is short, and her croup has a nice slope to it. Her back legs are positioned squarely underneath her, not out behind her. She has a nice crook to her hocks, but not excessive. All Tennessee walking horses, whether pleasure horses or show horses, should possess these same general conformation characteristics. This filly has a great deal of overall presence. She's beginning to set her head, and she appears comfortable, happy, and alert. This can be seen in the way she constantly pricks her ears forward. A happy horse will use its ears and look out of the bridle. Not nearly as lateral in her movement as the previous colt, she's much closer to a 4-beat flat walk. She's even beginning to show signs of head shake and rhythm, two important indicators of a good 4-cornered gait. Tim Gray calls this particular gait a good swing walk. This means that she's still a little on the swingy or pacey side, but is very close to performing a 4-beat walking gait. This filly is using her shoulders well, which makes her front legs appear light and airy. She's striding and following through nicely with her back end. Overall, she's very balanced. According to her trainer, at this stage in her development, he prefers that she not be completely squared up and finished in her gait. The swing walk he refers to enables a horse to remain free and easy. Although the pace is often criticized in the show ring and should be penalized there, it can sometimes be useful in the training process. Horses that are constantly ridden in a square, 4-cornered gait can eventually lose some of their stride length. Occasionally, this filly will take some missteps and lose her timing, consistency, and rhythm. At this stage in her training, the most important thing to be worked on is getting her consistent with each step she takes. With steady work, the filly will become more confident and consistent in her gait. Once that's been accomplished, the trainer will strive for a more polished headset and move the filly toward a diagonal 4-beat gait. This will be done with weight and collection. As her flat walk and running walk become more pronounced, her head shake will improve and her elevation will increase. From there, the show ring is sure to follow. This is a 2-year-old performance stallion that is finished and setting up in his gaits to be shown in competition. He's been in training longer than the previous filly. Like the filly, he is refined and correct in his overall conformation. He is wearing a single twisted wire Johnson gag bit with a snug but not tight cavesson and a medium set curb chain. Notice how much bolder, squarer, and four-cornered this colt is than the previous filly. His headset is more polished, and he has more overall motion in the bridle. His front legs have more break and reach to them. His back end has more drive and elevation. His rear stride is straight, true, and free of any twisting or excessive hock motion. He is simply a more finished product than the filly. Notice how he uses his ears and looks fresh and happy. The colt is light in his mouth, and the rider has just enough hold to maintain light contact with the mouth and keep the slack out of the reins. As he steps up into the running walk, the colt will exhibit the same form as he did at the flat walk, only with more speed. He will drive and stretch more off his back end and break and reach higher in front. Overall, he will have a bolder look, yet still remain free and easy. This concludes Part 2 in this 3-part program brought to you by the Tennessee Walking Horse Breeders and Exhibitors Association. We hope these techniques have been helpful. Part 1, Basic Techniques for Starting the Tennessee Walking Horse, covers foaling, halter training, round pin techniques for saddling and riding the unbroken horse. Part 3, Basic Techniques for Grooming the Tennessee Walking Horse, covers grooming, bathing, and clipping. These programs are available through the TWHBEA gift shop at 1-800-359-1574.